Right. So as much as I love the movie A Knight's Tale and Heath Ledger, this is not about Heath Ledger. The Knight's Tale bears like no relation at all to the plot of the film. Do not be confused. Get it out of your head. Gone? Gone. Okay. Instead, The Knight's Tale and The Wife of Bath's Tale, they're really examples of this medieval genre called chivalric romance. It just comes, you've heard of chivalry, right? That just comes from that. And again, you should probably get sort of all of your ideas about what romance means out of your head. We're not talking about Danielle Steele. There are no shirtless men in kilts hanging around. Totally different. In medieval context, what it basically just means is that it's an adventure story, kind of starring a knight usually, kind of going around and doing lots of adventuresome things. Sometimes there are dragons, sometimes there are stuff like that. There's often, a lovely lady involved in some way as maybe like the prize for all of those adventures. But it's not romance novels, is not what we're talking about. And so the knight, he tells one of these tales, and it's really the first tale that all the pilgrims tell. It's super long. To my mind, it's kind of one of the more boring, but it is significant because it's the first one. So we're going to go over what happens. We've got two cousins. Their names are Arcite and Palamon. And they're nephews of sort of the Duke of Thebes. And they end up getting captured by the Duke of Athens. And they're in jail, but luckily they have, or maybe unluckily, they have a window in their cell. And so Palamon, he kind of one day is looking out the window and he sees a beautiful woman named Emily, with whom he falls immediately in love, just like from looking at the distance. That through a window thicka of many a bara, of iron great and square as any spara, he cast his eye upon Emilia, and therewithal he blainta and cried, ah. So love at first sight, basically. He catches a glimpse at Emilia, and cries out. He's like totally into her. Not that smart. He wakes up his cousin and says, come take a look at this. She's great. And of course, he falls in love with her too. That if Palamon was wounded sore, Arcite is hurt as much as he or more. So Arcite's like even more in love with this girl. They get all mad at each other because, they're fighting over the same woman. But it doesn't last that long because actually an old friend of Arcite's turns up and is all, negotiating his release from prison. So the Duke of Athens is like, all right, you can leave. Just don't ever come back to my country. I just don't want you here anymore. So he's free now, but he can't pursue Emily because he's not allowed back in Athens. Palamon is still in jail, but at least he can see her through the window. So those are they're both unhappy for various reasons. And what ensues is kind of years of moaning and disguising themselves and trying to get back so they can see Emily again. Until finally, Arcite and Palamon, so that now they're both free. Palamon's escaped. They're both free and they're both disguised. And then they run into each other and they decide that they're going to fight to the death over Emily. They're interrupted by the Duke of Athens, who's like, what are these dudes doing? One of them's supposed to be in jail, one of them's supposed to be gone. This is the worst. And he wants to just kill them. He's super upset. His wife kind of intervenes and says, you know what, let's have a compromise. Let's give them each 100 knights, and they'll actually have a battle over this, a real proper battle, we can watch. And so they do that, and Arcite's eventually declared the winner, but then an earthquake happens and it knocks him off his horse and then he dies. So Palamon gets to marry Emily and then they kind of mourn Arcite. Win, I guess? It's sort of a way to get out of having to actually choose one or the other, and it still lets Arcite win, so it's kind of fair to him. But that's our first example of sort of this chivalric romance genre, and you can see it does involve a woman, but the vast majority of it is these sort of, battling for things and, adventuring and disguising and escaping, all these other kind of things that knights are good at and that they do. So the next story, not so much, is told by the fabulous wife of Bath. She's definitely wins the most interesting Pilgrim Award. She she had 5 husbands. She's got all this advice about love. She gets the longest prologue to her tale of any of the pilgrims, pretty sure, which leads us to believe that Chaucer kind of might like her too. She might like her as much as we do. So we get this chivalric romance that is told by a woman instead of a man.